Residence R3A to a joint jurisdiction business B3 heavy district. 3901 Main Avenue is the address. And Ryan Miller, our city planner, will step in place of Mike tonight and present this item.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and members of the council. This joint item we have for discussion tonight, we have a rezone in the joint jurisdiction area and the outlined area in yellow there. It is currently zoned joint jurisdiction R3A, which is a residential district in the joint area. The applicant is seeking a zoning of joint jurisdiction B3. This is within the joint jurisdiction area and in an urban medium future land use category, as you can see on the map on the right. Within the comprehensive plan for the city of Brookings, it's an urban medium area, which does support both the R3A and the B3. The current zoning in place is the R3A, along with adjacent zoning R3A to the east, B3 zoning to the west and south, and then ag zoning to the north. The applicant would like to change this to B3, though, to be more consistent with the Main Avenue frontage property and to explore future commercial uses in this area. This item did go to the joint planning commissions of the city and county and did receive recommendation of approval. Development review team also recommends approval of the rezone. And I'll stand for any questions you have.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve with City Council.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Larry?
Look for a motion from the commission to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Okay, open the public hearing on this item. Is there any public comment on this particular item?
I'm a little confused. Is it on Main Avenue South, 1600 block?
Yes.
You have another one.
Well, this is 3901.
Yeah.
This is further south. This is close to the S-curve, ma'am.
Okay, that's not the one I want to
Yeah.
talk about.
Okay, close public hearing. Council or County Commission have any questions, comments on this item? All right, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Rasmussen,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tiltonburn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Larry?
Will the county please call the roll?
Krogman,
Aye.
Hostler,
Aye.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, well, with that being said, we'll adjourn the joint city-county portion of the agenda. Entertain a motion to adjourn the city-county and county commission portion of this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I also ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second.
All those in favor, respond by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. This portion of the meeting is adjourned. We will entertain a brief recess to reset the room for the remaining city-county or city council agenda.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Barry Dunn. I'm the president of South Dakota State University. Just some news for you that I wanted to share, some good news about our city and our community and the university. Last week, SDSU was ranked the safest large campus in South Dakota. The ranking examined institutions with enrollments of over 10,000 students. The report was done by safehome.org using data from the U.S. Department of Justice, the FBI, and the U.S. Department of Education. The ranking reflects the efforts of everyone in the city, including the University Police Department, the Brookings Police Department, led by Michael Drake, both of those working very closely together. It reflects both the city and the university providing well-lit, safe areas for people to park and walk. It reflects the safe environments in the community and on campus for students to live, and available resources and training to provide support and guidance for people in need, but also for our law enforcement. In addition to being the safest campus in South Dakota, the rankings SDSU received was better than many of our peers in the region, including North Dakota State University, the University of North Dakota, Iowa State University, University of Iowa, University of Minnesota, University of Kansas, and the University of Nebraska. Safety on any campus is paramount, and being recognized as a high-performing, safe campus was just extremely gratifying to everyone on campus, and I hope it is to you too. It sends an important message to our students and our community members and families to show them that we, all of us, value their personal safety and will work every day to make Brookings and SDSU a place they can feel comfortable and safe when on campus and in our city. Thank you for your time today and everything you do to make Brookings a safe and wonderful place to live, study, learn, and work. So thank you very much.
Thank you, President Dunn. Council have any questions, comments? Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, open forum. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the council on an item that is not listed on tonight's agenda? Okay. Item 7, consent agenda. Approval of the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public comment on any item on the consent agenda? Council have any questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Avery,
Aye.
Doran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Rasmussen,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Hildenburn,
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Okay, presentations and reports. I do have a proclamation this evening. Jeannie Bosky, could you please come up? Okay. Mayoral proclamation, whereas Brookings' thriving international community contributes to our community's high quality of life and provides a vital economic impact to the Brookings area, and whereas Brookings is greatly benefited by having hundreds of international students from over 80 countries enrolled at South Dakota State University. Whereas the Brookings Multicultural Center, the Brookings Economic Development Corporation, and the South Dakota State University Office of International Affairs will hold the 3rd annual International Ice Cream Social and Community Fair to welcome international faculty and graduate students and their families to our community. Now, therefore, it be resolved that I, Opke G. Niemeyer, Mayor of the City of Brookings, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, August 21st, 2024, as a day to celebrate the cultures of our community. More than welcome to make a comment.
On behalf of the Brookings Multicultural Center, we would love to invite the city council members and the community to this event, which will be held next week, Wednesday, from 7 to 9 p.m. at Good Roots Farm and Gardens in Brookings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next thing on the reports, ex officio reports, Municipal Utility League, or Board.
All right. I did attend the BMU board meeting yesterday, and we had a number of things on the agenda, but a couple of things that stood out. We had a presentation from Henken Schultz, who's a PR firm that BMU is working with to do a large branding and multimedia PR campaign. You've probably seen billboards and things on social media, TV, radio, newspaper, all in an effort to bring awareness of the benefits of having municipal utilities and to ensure that that we are aware of all the services that they provide on a very dependable basis over time. So that's the purpose, and you'll be seeing more of those things in the future. We did also review the 2025 capital improvement plan for BMU, and it's a detailed plan from 2024 to 2032, detailing everything from large infrastructure projects like the water plant to purchasing equipment and that type of thing. The one thing that was brought out there is that they attempt to work with the city of Brookings in their projects. So if we're going to tear up a street one year and there's opportunities to do some work with water mains or infrastructure that way, they try to coordinate that so they're not duplicating efforts and expense. So that was good to hear. One of the things that I heard about that I wasn't aware of, I guess, was the advanced metering system that we're going to have in Brookings for our electric meters. That will there'll be a series of transmitting towers on various BMU sites and city-owned properties that will tie all the meters together, and it will that information will go directly to a central point, and we won't have the meter reading anymore. That'll all go, and they can monitor that on almost a daily or a continuous basis. So they said one benefit of that could be in the future, as we have more electric vehicles and electric charging stations, if they can see that there's a large drain on the power in just a certain area, they may have to address that with more upgrades in their system. So that was just one thing I thought was interesting, and they move those things around on the priority list depending on availability of materials and different things. So it's a continual process, and they seem to spend quite a bit of time on that. So that's my report.
All right, thank you, Wayne. Is there a report on the Brookings Health System?
We do not have a report this month, as we did not meet in July, but just a reminder to the community to come down to downtown at sundown on Thursday from 5:30 to 7 to chat with council and staff. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Okay, item 8C, presentation and action on acceptance of the master drainage plan. John Thompson, our Public Works Director, and Charlie Richter, our City Engineer, will present this item.
Good evening, Council. As you already know, I'm Charlie. In 2008, the city developed its first master drainage plan with ecological resource consultants. This plan identified flood-prone areas throughout the city and included a list of capital projects to alleviate those issues. Over the past 3 years, the Stormwater Master Plan Committee Public Works, and the city's consultant, ISG, has worked to update this comprehensive plan to include modeling of the city's stormwater system with comprehensive modeling software, revisiting and identifying additional flooding issues throughout the city, revision to the city's prioritization process to include an increase in environmental focus and sustainable measures, recommendations to the stormwater standards, maintenance recommendations, stormwater fee analysis, and public engagement and outreach. These findings were shared with City Council last November at a study session where we took comments and incorporated them into the plan. I will take the next several minutes to go over the main points of the plan. Some of these slides you may have already seen at November's meeting last year. Plan goals for this plan include reduction in flooding, enhancement of water quality, recreation, and aesthetics of the stormwater facilities. As you can see, over the last 100 years, there has been a 25% increase in annual rainfall in Brookings, stressing the importance of a comprehensive plan to address these stormwater issues. New technologies since 2008, the 2008 plan include the use of rain-on-grid modeling system, which is a 2D system that extensively models the city's terrain and models it based on an average rain event, which was not widely used during the previous study. New plan recommendations included improved project prioritization process, recommended projects, revisions to stormwater fees, new development standards, and new inspection procedures. The city was broken down into 5 drainage areas named SDSU, Central, I-29, Southwest, and Maderi, as you can see up above. Community engagement. The city engaged had multiple public engagement events, including Stormwater Master Plan Committee meetings with the city, SDSU, BMU officials, and community representatives, an online survey, and a November 21st study session with City Council. So we identified numerous projects throughout the city to be done to alleviate the flooding around the city. So we broke them down into, and you'll see these maps, each area, we'll identify projects identified in each area for these projects. In the SDSU drainage area, there were 3 projects identified that would help alleviate flooding in this area: Rotary Park improvements, Village Square conveyance and stormwater storage improvements, and State Avenue and Highway 14 storm sewer improvements. In the Maderi drainage area, we identified 5 projects, including 8th Street South storage, Nelson storage and conveyance improvements, 32nd Street storage and upstream conveyance improvements, and not to be confused with, this is at the intersection of Maderi and 20th Street South, the Sawgrass Drive storm sewer improvements, and the Parkway Boulevard storm sewer improvements. In the central drainage area, we identified 6 projects, including the Brookings Regional Airport storage, Pioneer Park improvements, 5th Avenue underground storage and storm sewer improvements, 6th Street underground storage, Veterans Memorial Park and storm sewer improvements, and 3rd Street storm sewer improvements. This plan, over the next 10 years, has $12 million worth of projects that we're able to fund. In the next 10 years, project construction costs range from $380,000 to $4.7 million in project costs. $45 million in projects were identified in the plan. I'd love to do all $45 million, but unfortunately, our fund only can fund $12 million over the next 10 years. So we think this is going to be a very ambitious plan as it is. We're looking forward to enacting it. Going to go over the stormwater fee. So this is something we'll discuss a little further on in the evening. But the stormwater fee pays for maintenance of drainage infrastructure, replacement of aging infrastructure in new projects that reduce flooding, personnel and administration, maintenance of stormwater equipment, and public outreach and education. We'll briefly go over what the stormwater fee currently is based on and what we are recommending with the ERU. The current system is based on land use factors. So there's about 80 land uses that are identified in the stormwater ordinance. Each has a factor based on the average impervious and the impact it may have on the storm sewer system. And then that factor is multiplied by the parcel area square footage times the unit financial charge. The recommended equivalent residential unit is based on impervious square footage. We flew the entire city and performed with infrared technology. We were able to calculate imperviousness for each lot. We use this information to determine what an average residential parcel would have for imperviousness, and we use that to provide equity across the board. So with that, we use that information to provide a calculation for what that impact would be for commercial and industrial based on the impervious of the parcel. This is used predominantly throughout the United States. Over 80% of the communities that have a stormwater fee use the ERU system. In Brookings, the average single-family residential unit would have 4,573 square feet of impervious area. This is based on the infrared flyover. All single-family residential units, properties would pay 1 ERU. Non-single-family residential properties depend on the impervious area of that parcel. The proposed ERU is proposed at $6,014 a month. We're starting in 2025. This would provide an increase to the average single-family residential property of 4.24%. There is a 3% annual rate increase that's being proposed starting in 2026 to account for inflation. This will generate approximately $300,000 a year in additional revenue. This would fund the $12 million in projects that we just identified over the next 10 years and would continue to be billed through the property assessment for everyone. Here's an example of some inequity that we've seen with the current system. You've got two parcels, one on the left that's 51 acres in size. The one on the right is 12.8 acres in size. But what we really were focusing on is the impervious acreage on each parcel. On the left, you have 13 acres of impervious versus 12.1 acres on the right-hand parcel. Currently, the annual bill for the one on the left is $23,604. The one on the right has an annual bill of $6,723. With the ERU, based on the impervious that we have calculated for both lots, the proposed annual bill will be $9,351.47 for the parcel on the left versus the parcel on the right, which would have an annual bill of $8,670.66. Water quality. So we've talked about, and we talked about earlier this year, a pilot program that we've instituted on a residential basis. And we would like to continue that with the funding from this ERU. In 2024, our pilot program involved rain barrels and native plantings. With rain barrels, we sold 91 barrels and seemed to be a pretty popular program. Native plantings, we issued all 40 vouchers, in which we would provide an incentive for paying for 50% of up to $250 worth of plantings. Potential expansion of program in the future included rain gardens, soil quality restoration and permeable pavers. We're already in discussions with the Sustainability Council and SDSU to come up with a program to expand what we already did last year, this year, to include rain gardens, to and increase our footprint in sustainable measures. Developmental standards and inspection procedures. We identified several developmental standards that we will incorporate into our future developmental standards, including the use of 4-bays and groundwater freeboard. 4-bays provide us the ability to clean out detention basins in a more easily accessible area, saving us money with maintenance. Groundwater freeboard, this would identify the groundwater elevation versus the bottom of detention basins. This would provide us with the ability to predict whether these detention basins would be wet or full of water or dry. There's certain interest in keeping these dry for safety purposes. We've also gone through and extensively looked at increasing our maintenance procedures for detention basins and other stormwater structures. This year, we've started on a 7-year cycle to maintain all inlets and storm sewer within the city. So in summary, the plan provides a guiding document for future stormwater improvements and developmental standards, improves resiliency against flood risk, provides recommendations to accelerate practices that improve water quality, and improves sustainability and protection to our watersheds. We will be discussing the ERFU fee later on in the evening, which, like we discussed, improves equity and ensures funding for $12 million worth of projects in the next 10 years. Thank you, and I stand here for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Charlie. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public comment on this item? I do know that we need more improvements, even though we did kind of handle the last rain pretty well. There's always room for improvement. Any other comments from council? Council member Specker.
Yes, I have a question on the slide where you list the projects early on.
Which one?
The slide. Keep on.
You mentioned that there's, over the next 2 years, what the costs are going to be, and you have this $12 million figure. Is that $12 million the total of the projects that are listed here?
$12 million is the present day cost for those projects over the next 10 years. So all these projects.
So the ones listed here are the ones that are being planned for the next 10 years?
That is correct.
So I was just trying to find like the $380 to $4.7 million projects. And I guess I'm just not sure
Yeah,
where
there's that 380 right there in year 2025. It's for Village Square, Phase 3.
Yep.
And then the 4.7 is split over 2 years, actually
Okay.
multiple years. We'll have a design, and then it's a 2-year construction project.
Okay.
So it's multiple years.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah.
Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question about the project's estimated costs as well. With some of the large-scale projects we've done over the last year and gone out to bid with over the last year, we've seen a lot of fluctuation. I was kind of curious how recent these estimates are. We've looked at this plan dating back to November, and how confident you are in the numbers attached to this overall $12 million price tag.
These are pretty conservative cost estimates. We don't want to ask for additional funds. And they were recently done within the last year. We found a lot of variation in project costs before then because of material changes, cost of materials and availability of materials, as well as availability of contractors. There was a lot of federal funding that was being pumped into communities that made contractors, predicting those costs a little bit more variable. I think what we are going to be seeing in the near future is more stability in cost prediction for those projects.
Thanks for sharing that. I had a question on slide 17 related to the ERU rate increases, but perhaps we'll have a chance to discuss that when that topic comes up later in the meeting. So if you'd prefer, I can just hold that question for later.
Sure, I think that'd be appropriate.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Tilton Burn.
My question is also on the projects list. As you noted, there was $12 million in projects there. I would imagine a lot of these projects probably qualify for different funding mechanisms, such as grants. Will your department be exploring those funding opportunities along the way?
We definitely will be exploring. One of the main things that in the past that we've used is the state revolving fund. None of these projects involve any loans. This is straight cash, though grant opportunities will provide us opportunities to stretch this money further.
Great, thank you. And I would just like to reiterate that I really appreciate the work that's been done on this, to be able to see the forward thinking and the plan to be able to address some of our stormwater issues is really fantastic. And to see the way sustainability has been woven into this is really encouraging. So thank you for the work that you and your team have done.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? City Clerk, please call the roll.
Dorn. Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
Wendell. Avery.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Item 9A, action on resolution 24-077, a resolution awarding bids on project 2024-05 STI structure number 06-160-152, replacement. Charlie Richter, our city engineer, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor. I'm here tonight requesting approval of Resolution 24-077 for the award of a bridge replacement project on Western Avenue, AKA Structure 06-160-152. Every 2 years, the City of Brookings inspects all city-owned bridges. In the most recent inspection in 2023, this bridge on Western Avenue, adjacent to the GCC concrete plant, was downgraded from a fair to poor condition, triggering a need to replace the structure. Bids for this project were opened on August 6th, where 4 bids were received. The lowest bidder was Ostrom Excavating, with a low bid of $166,489.94, which is approximately 22% lower than the engineer's estimate. This project includes replacement of the bridge with 3 culverts to convey water during large storm events. During this time, Western Avenue will be closed for several weeks to through traffic and will be detoured. We plan to start this work shortly and will be completed by November. There is sufficient appropriation in the drainage fund account for this contract. Public Works recommends that Ostrom Excavating be awarded the contract for the project. This concludes my presentation, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Charlie. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Council, have any questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Dorn.
Aye.
Okay, item 10A, introduction and first reading on ordinance 24-025, an ordinance authorizing budget amendment number 8 to the 2024 budget. Ashley Wrench, our financial director, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This is the first reading of ordinance 24-025, authorizing amendment number 8 to the 2024 budget. At the previous council meeting on July 23rd, council approved resolution 24-022, authorizing the city manager to enter into an energy savings performance contract with Ameresco. This amendment will set the budget for that contract, increasing the other capital expenditure account in the second penny sales tax or capital improvement fund by $3,166,168 and transferring $500,000 to that fund from the general fund to account for a portion of the savings to be achieved through the agreement. As stated at the last council meeting, the scope of work includes 5 projects: citywide LED lighting conversion, HVAC equipment upgrades at the East Fire Station, Larson Ice Center, and the Dakota Bank Center, window and door upgrades at Larson Ice Center and the Dakota Bank Center, fire alarm replacement at Larson Ice Center, and a roof replacement at the East Fire Station. This energy savings performance contract will also serve to reduce the city's carbon footprint by 15%. The second reading of this ordinance will be held on August 27th. And with that, I'll stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Is there any public comment on this item? Council, any questions, comments? Okay, second reading will be on the 27th. Item 10B, introduction and first reading on ordinance 24-026, an ordinance amending Chapter 82 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Brookings and pertaining to the covering of vehicle loads in the City of Brookings. John Thompson, our Public Works Director, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. John Thompson with Public Works. Item 10B is a first reading of Ordinance 24-026. The proposed ordinance will address a clerical error in the existing code and clarify exemptions for county highway vehicles during winter and emergency operations. Chapter 82 of the Code of Regulations, Section 567, pertains to covering of loads within the City of Brookings. This section of code was revised in 2013. However, that revision included a clerical error that was not noticed until recently. A redlined and clean copy of the proposed ordinance is included in your agenda package. The second reading of this ordinance will be presented to City Council on Tuesday, August 27th. That concludes staff's presentation. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, John. Any public comment on this item? Council, questions, comments? Okay, another one that we'll look at on the 27th again. Item 10C, introduction and first reading on ordinance 24-027, an ordinance amending Articles 1 and 2 of Chapter 72, Storm Drainage of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Brookings, South Dakota. Charlie Richter will present this item.
Good evening again, Council. I'm here presenting a revision to Articles 1 and 2 of Chapter 72, Storm Drainage in the City's Code of Ordinances. This revision will alter the method of calculating the storm drainage fee for residential and non-residential lots. The recent update to the city's master drainage plan recommends updating the city storm drainage fee. The city's storm drainage fee pays for the maintenance of infrastructure, replacement of aging infrastructure, new projects that reduce flooding, personnel, maintenance of stormwater equipment, and public outreach and education. The current fee, established in 1985, is calculated based on land use. Newer technology allows the city to provide a more equitable means of calculating this fee by basing it on the average impervious area on a residential lot. This fee structure utilizes the equivalent residential unit to determine fees and is used by over 80% of communities with a stormwater fee. Under the ERU fee structure, all residential parcels will be assessed 1 ERU. Commercial and industrial properties will be based on the actual amount of imperviousness on the parcel, and will be charged a minimum of 1 ERU. An example of the improvement in equity can be seen in the above slide. And we just talked about this a few moments ago with these two parcels. You can see current annual bill for the parcel on the left versus the current annual bill for the parcel on the right. And with the new ERU, based on the amount of impervious on each parcel, the proposed annual bill will be significantly more equitable between the two lots. Both parcels have similar impervious area, though one is billed 4 times as much at this time. With the ERU fee structure, this parcel on the left will have a bill of $9,351, and the parcel on the right will have an annual bill of $8,670. All charges will continue to be invoiced through the property tax assessment. Effective 2025, the city is proposing an initial ERU financial charge of $6.14 a month, or $73.68 a year. To account for future inflation, an annual 3% rate increase would occur starting in 2026. Under this new fee structure, the city will be able to fund $12 million in projects over the next 10 years. This concludes my presentation, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there any public comment on this item?
Oh, sorry about that.
That's right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. My name is Jacob Mills. I'm at 7340 Sunset Road in Brookings. I wanted to just commend Charlie and his staff on the drainage work that they've done. I think the drainage report, I think the drainage modeling, I think a lot of that's been great. I've been to several of the community events. I was at the study session that you guys held for this, and I've also emailed the council on this particular ERU topic. I just wanted to briefly highlight to you that I would challenge you as you look at this ERU to consider something that we talk about all the time in Brookings, which is affordable housing. Everybody wants affordable housing. I know you all want affordable housing. You ask anyone on the street, they want affordable housing. The challenge is affordable housing is not solved with one decision, and it's not ruined with one decision. It's 100 decisions, 100 factors. If we try to influence those in the direction of affordable housing, we help affordable housing. If we don't think about it, we hurt it. What Charlie just described makes a lot of sense. We want the charge for the fee to be equitable, based on the amount of impervious surface. He showed a couple of commercial properties and said, this property is larger, it's being disproportionately feed because of its large size, but it actually has about the same amount of impervious surface as this other property. So with new system, we look at impervious surface, the fee is relatively similar because they both have the same amount of impervious surface. When we come over to the residential side, we're averaging that at 4,500 square feet per residential home. I certainly understand this is simpler. There are a lot of homes, gives us one price for all the homes, but an average harms the outer edges of any range. And in this case, that average will serve to benefit the richest homeowners with the largest homes who have more impervious surface, and it will harm the smallest homes. I would be glad to email this to you, as I know this is a first reading, but these are two neighborhoods in the city of Brookings. This one's on 6th Avenue South. There are a dozen homes on this street, which are all maybe no garage, single stall garage. Total impervious surface on these homes is 2,000 square feet or less, including their driveway. Based on the fee of the ERU, they should be paying a $28, $27, $30 fee. They're going to pay $75. On this side, I have a very prominent cul-de-sac in Brookings with two homes that are 7,500 square feet and one that is 13,000. They should be paying $122 to $215. I would challenge you to come up with a simple solution that makes that equitable but yet easy to implement.
Thank you,
Apologize,
Jacob.
I didn't realize I was on the clock.
Any other comments from public? Questions, comments by council? Councilmember Wendell?
Thank you, Mayor. My question would be for Charlie to maybe talk a little bit about how you evaluated going with a flat rate for all residential properties versus some differential rate based on impervious surface over a certain amount potentially.
With the ERU system, it is very common for all residential units to be charged one ERU. We averaged the square footage for all residential lots and came up with the average amount of impervious for that lot, for a residential lot, and based it on that. Now, you could, in theory, calculate and charge everyone based on their impervious, but it becomes a very cumbersome fee to administer. Yeah, go, yep.
Was there any consideration given to potentially two categories of residential units, one above 5,000 square feet and one below, or so you're not doing individualized, but you're saying these residential lots are over this threshold. We've used our aerial equipment to identify that, and these residential lots fall below. Is that a feasible approach?
We did look at that. It became increasingly more cumbersome to administer, even by differentiating. We have over, I don't even know how many lots.
7,000 homes.
7,000 homes, and to start splitting those up would be increasingly difficult, especially as you add and enlarge the city. So we were trying to make it a fee that was fairly equitable with the residential, more equitable with non-residential and commercial, and something that we could easily administer. As soon as you start adding these varying layers, and right now it is challenging every year to recalculate this and figure out new lots to add to the stormwater fee system. It becomes quite an endeavor to try to administer, splitting up these 7,000 lots into those categories.
I would add to the comment, I agree with Jacob, and I challenge staff to go back and look and see if we can create a more equitable process, either in tiers or by the individual residential unit. What Charlie's telling you is that it becomes more administratively burdened, but what happens is it increases the actual rate. And so individuals actually end up paying more, even with smaller lots, because it's so much more administratively burdened. Is that correct?
Well, the administrative burden is 100% a fact on that. It would increase our annual budget. So overall, when you look at that, if we're going to add staffing to administer this program, then our rates are going to go up to add the staffing. So it's kind of a wash on that. What Jacob did say, we fully understand that, and we did look at that for a lot of other communities and see, what are you doing for these? And one of the other options that you can look at on that, one of the views that you can look at on that is on these small 2,600 square foot homes and the properties, a lot of them have an HOA in which the parcel itself is actually the structure of the home. So it's 100% impervious, versus a standard lot where you have some 100% impervious. So when you have a standard lot, you have a yard and outside, so you have some pervious area for the migration. So when you consider that, yes, it's half the size of our average 4,573 square foot, but it's 100% impervious. There is no migration of water there. So I think that's one of the other sides of that argument is, number one, it makes it very simple. It's very straightforward for everybody to understand versus, oh, sorry, I have a triplex now versus a duplex, and it gets very complicated, and there's going to be a lot of adjustments on that. If you make it standard like this, we eliminate a lot of that confusion. And I kind of go back to 100%, yes, it's a smaller lot, but it's 100% impervious versus a standard lot that has 4,573 square foot as impervious. So you can look at it both ways.
I'd also like to add that we all benefit from these stormwater improvements. I don't look at any one of these improvements as just benefiting the people in that area. I feel like they benefit the whole community. And I think there's a responsibility for every property owner to pay a portion of that. And we could really split hairs and try to figure out down to the square foot, how many people, what their runoff is going to be. But there's also a responsibility from every community member to make those improvements. I feel an obligation. I live in a dry house. I live in a dry area, but I feel an obligation to pay for people that may not be as fortunate as me.
So the duplexes and the triplexes and the condos, apartments, are they all included as the single family? Or do they have a separate, will they go by this impervious?
For townhomes such as, say, a two-family or a townhome that's split between ownership, each one of those people would be charged an ERU.
Okay.
If that structure has a parcel number, an individual parcel number.
Councilmember Tilton Burn.
You mentioned that the use of an ERU charge is very common across the nation. Did you find at all, was it common to have the flat rate for all residential properties? And did you find any examples of communities that perhaps gave some sort of waiver or credit towards individuals that perhaps have an income burden or anything like that?
Predominantly, it's a flat rate. Single-family homes, even people who own condos, each would be charged an ERU. I think the city of Des Moines, there's people who live in condos that get charged an ERU. People who live in single-family homes get charged one ERU. So that's a community across the board. I don't know if they make any exceptions, and we can look into that, but I think it's a very common way to administer the ERU.
Any questions, comments from council? All right, second reading on the 27th also. Item 11, second readings and public hearings. Item 11A, public hearing and action on ordinance 24-023, an ordinance to rezone the east 151 feet of Block 1 in Northern Plains Addition from a business B2A office district to a residence R2 two-family district. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Ordinance 24-023 is a rezoning for the Northern Plains Addition located along Main Avenue South. The rezoning area is only pertinent to the small outlined area in red, kind of on the southeast corner of the property. It's approximately 150 or 131 feet by 73 feet, totaling a little over 10,000 square feet. They're proposing to downzone the property, downzoning in which it's moving from a commercial zone to a residential and choosing to go from a B2A to an R2. The developer originally planned to do townhouse concept on the east portion, and this location was zoned B2A to account for overflow parking for the medical building to the west. Upon completion, it was determined that they didn't need the additional parking. It was never constructed, and so they just wanted to rezone this small area from a B2A to an R2. With that, Planning Commission did recommend on a unanimous vote to approve, and the Development Review Team supports the rezoning request. With that, I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Please come forward.
My name's Kyle Roush. I'm with Dakota Land Design. I'm one of the contractors on the project working on this development. Just to echo a few things that Mike said, when we originally set up this development, we thought we needed that for parking. And since we reduced our parking requirement for the medical building on the southwest corner, so we decided that we could use this property in a different way. This is kind of an effort to reduce our cost for our affordable housing project that we'll have for rent and possibly sale on this property. It just allows us to spread out a little bit. We've got another agenda item further on where we'll talk about our amount of units. We're not trying to increase our units. We're just trying to make a better community there. The entire development is designed with an engineered drainage plan by Banner. A guy from Banner's here today, and he'll talk in just a little bit about that. This rezoning will not change the drainage plan, and Banner has confirmed that it doesn't affect any of our impervious or any of our retention that we're required to have for the property. We were informed this week from Charlie at the city that there was a neighbor that had reached out and he had some concerns regarding drainage for our development. During that 100-year rain that we just had, some of that water hopped the curb, didn't 100% get into our inlets, and Charlie asked that we see what we can do about that, because this could be a more frequent issue coming up in the future. So what we're planning to do is we do have a small berm and swale existing on the property on the east end that we're continuing to develop, but that is just for the emergency overflow. so it can reach that retention area. Now, the southeast corner of this property does not have that berm and swale yet, and we're trying to retain some trees that were existing there for the surrounding residents at the time. What we'd like to do is we're planning on shifting our buildings, our homes that we're already planning a little bit north, and then we're going to continue that berm and swale around the corner so we can tie it all together. So essentially, our water will still do what it was planned to do. All the parking lot water should get to the inlets. It should all get to our retention area, but in the event that we have some water in a major rainfall event that gets out of the parking lot area without going into the inlet, by us shifting those buildings north, however far Banner requires us to do that to get that berm and swale in there, then we can catch any sort of emergency overflow and bring that to our inlet area. So, and one last comment is I'd like to just say that it's important to note that the water on our site currently routed to our retention area, it's a huge reduction from the amount of escaping stormwater that occurred in this field before we developed the property. Almost the entire field used to drain onto the neighbors, and now essentially, especially after our berm and swale that we're planning on finishing up here, virtually 100% of it will be directed where it needs to be and out of those guys' way. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alan Sandor. I'm one of the partners of Professional Plains that is in the medical group and owning this portion. I just wanted to come introduce myself. I know my partner was here last time. We're just trying to take turns on who comes. Just wanted to reemphasize that we're a bunch of dentists trying to provide services to a city that didn't otherwise have those. This back portion happens to be part of we're not professional developers, so we are relying on engineers and our construction company to make sure that our neighbors are as happy as we are. We do consider our office building part of our home. We try to make it nice, and I hope many of you have had the opportunity to check out the new building. We intend to make the homes back there to mimic ours. It's something that we'll have to look at. And one of the things that we want to make sure that if any of our children, we currently have 2 out of quite a few of our kids that are currently going to SDSU, to hopefully, if we get this going, we'll be part of the tenants. So it's not just a build to sell, it's build to use also. And so we absolutely want to make sure that there are no issues either with neighbors or let alone in our own properties. Okay? Standing by for any questions.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Questions, council, comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other more public comments? Please come forward.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name's Linda Watson. I live at 1618 Main Avenue South, which is right across the street from that development. I want the council to deny the rezoning of the property directly across the street from me. My understanding is that the council's primary duty is to protect the privacy and of the neighborhood and to decrease traffic flow. At this property value of my house has already gone down due to the extreme amount of traffic that's generated along that road. It's difficult for me to even exit my driveway. And if at certain times of the day, it's dangerous for me to exit my driveway. If we added another 20 units, townhomes, rental townhomes, with people that are going in and out day and night, it would make things excruciatingly difficult for me. I would love it if the council would consider my point of view and look at the ramifications of putting these townhomes in a residential area. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward.
My name is Ron C., and I'm at 503 Deer Pass. And I'm the one that's immediately impacted by this rezone. I sit right in the southeast corner of the property. I've got 181 feet of frontage right along that southeast. And the 72 feet that they're talking about is very valuable to pick up water runoff and so that you have some percolation down. That corner of that 5+ acre property has been a drainage problem for years, ever since we've lived there. And what we have been having, like the last substantial rain we had, 2 to 3 inches, we had a river coming over the curb that comes out of the parking lot and goes around. When the way that it looks to my eye, when they put that in, the outside of the curb is lower than the inside, and the drain is down the street somewhat. So when that water comes out of the parking lot, comes down, she just goes right over the curb, if there's any amount of rain at all. And I don't know if it's going to have to be taken out and done properly, or put in a 2 to 3 foot curb around there to contain that water so that it will then have to push down to their drain so that it can get to the detention pond. And the way that the design was on what they were planning, and unfortunately I couldn't hear Ryan with the minor changes or whatever the changes were, the wall of the first unit would be 16 feet from my sunroom. And right now there are 7 evergreens planted, and they were planted 9 feet from the property line. And if the plan stays as it was, those trees would be removed. And they provide a lot of uptake too. Some of them are 15 feet high. But once again, I couldn't hear really what Ryan was saying about the shift. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other public comments, please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Brookings City Council. My name is Jeff Arneson. I own Jayco Construction, based out of 307 Railroad Street West here in Brookings. I am a basement repair contractor. I've been around here for many, many years. I've worked on a lot of the homes adjacent to this proposed zoning change, and they already have a lot of drainage issues with flooding, window wells, foundations with runoff from this new project going right up against the foundation. I see no possible good result basement water-wise to having more hardscape, more roof drainage, more development. What my opinion is, you really need to look at putting in a retention pond, or like the previous speaker was just saying, do something different with the drainage at that curb in the southeast corner of the parking lot, because it overflows. And I've seen a video of it that was taken at last Wednesday night's rain event, where the water flowed 5 to 6 inches deep into the backyards of the gentleman that was just up here speaking, as well as to Jason Flasky's yard, the property line between those. It was all just a massive river of water all coming over the curb of this new development. So any more roofing, any more paving, any more sidewalks, driveways, it's all going to take away the permeability of that soil. and promote more runoff and more detrimental effects to these basements, you know, on the adjoining cul-de-sacs, Cardinal Drive Circle, as well as Deer Pass. It all gets all the water from this new development, and any more roof drainage or anything's just going to add to the existing problem. So I stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Justin Booker with Banner Associates, the civil engineer for the project. Just like to say a few facts about the project quick on the drainage end of things. We did have a significant rain event last week. I believe we had 3 inches of rain in 1 hour. I would hazard a guess that's a 100-year rain event or maybe even larger than that. We just can't design for a greater rain event than that. It's not fiscally responsible. Additionally, most of the site does drain to the north at this time, which it did not before the development. As Kyle, the developer, had said, there is a berm on the east side of the property, and they are looking at rounding that around the southeast corner to prevent water from going into Mr. Snee's property. They would look at to try to save some of the trees that he planted, but they are on Northern Plains' property. So they'll do what they can, but if it's a choice between a berm and a tree, they're gonna put the berm, because drainage does seem to be the bigger concern here. As the previous speaker did state, they're looking for a pond. There is a pond. It is in the northeast corner of the property. I think with the changes that the developers proposed, that should solve a lot of these problems. Yeah, I would stand by for any questions.
Thank you. Council, have any questions for Justin? Councilmember Specker.
So what council's doing tonight is just voting on whether or not this is rezoned from a B2A, which where they were going to have an extended parking lot, to a residential section that will have more impervious soil. So that's sort of, or whatever the developers decide. Correct?
So one thing I would point out on that is the first design of this development had a much larger parking lot than it did now. And just with some of the parking changes, we were able to reduce the size of the parking lot from the original plan. So there's still a decent amount of green space between the parking lot and these units.
Okay.
The only thing up for consideration is the rezone of the very small sliver in the southeast corner. The rest of the property east of the road is already zoned R2, and to the west is B2A. So the only thing that's under consideration is that small sliver outlined in red on whether or not that should be a commercial zone property or a residential. And that's what the decision is tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Mike's live.
Hey, my name is Heather Neff. I live at 515 Cardinal Drive Circle. Just wanted to speak to a few of the things they talked about. I know a lot of it was addressed as a 100-year rain. We have not had any water in our basement or like sump pump running. Like we had it 8 years ago when we had like 7 inches of rain. So I don't know that our 3 inches definitely considers 100 years rain because yeah, our sump pump had not ran until we had double the amount of that rain 7 years ago. So, and this time we've had half that amount of rain, and my sump pump was running nonstop, standing water in the backyard everything like that, all the things. So just want that in consideration when they said that the field, previously had no drainage, nothing there but it was a field and there was trees. I know that wasn't always going to be the case when we moved in 15 years ago, but definitely seen an uptick in that water, in that drainage since the, parking lots have been put in. Another concern, I guess, would be, pulling into that driveway. We're not on an off street, it is Main Avenue. So concern about, safety of kids walking around the neighborhood. Sorry, I don't do public speaking. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more public comments? Please come forward.
Evening. My name is Jordan Arneson. I live at 1717 West 44th Street South. I assisted Jason Flasky in construction on an addition on his property, both with the subsoil, the waterproofing thereof, the drain tile thereof, and then the finished grading around. I've seen the slope firsthand. I've ran equipment across the slope firsthand. Those houses that were built around those cul-de-sacs were very limited on what they could do for elevation change. I was asking him in particular if he knew why the driveways were as steep as they are. Reason why is there's city ordinance saying, zoning, I don't know what it is, saying that your sidewalk can't be more than 6 inches above the height of the curb. So it limited it being flat in a steep driveway, that then when the developers developed that, they were building into a hillside. Everything from those houses going off to the west, all has been sloping down towards there. Now the hope was when development would have happened on this thing, there would have been extensive dirt work to reshape that. Jason himself, along with neighbors around there, had taken and actually themselves tried to do shaping. And of course, what's coming on to you, if you build anything, all you're doing is sending your water to your neighbors. And of course, they're not going to go flood out their neighbors. So they're all trying to figure out how to do this. So when additions go on, that was a large concern of how do we keep the water from adding this on here and the water coming around that from shoving and burying out the neighbor. I've seen the soil type there. That is a heavy clay loam. It saturates very easily. It shoves in basement walls very easily. It's already an extensive problem. Thought process was that there was going to be some form of retention pond, some form of drainage going to it, where along the property line they would have taken and caught the water that was coming off to redirect this. When it was a hayfield, it had time to slow down and run. The notion of 100-year rains, I can think of in the last decade, at least 10 100-year rains that we keep seeing. We seem to see a 100-year rain of 3 to 5 inches every other summer. If a 3-inch rain can spill over a curb, this wasn't a proper design. I don't know who did the design work on that, but after Jason was voicing some concerns, I just out of curiosity drove over there and took a look. You've got all their parking that they already built, that they already blacktop, that has finished grade and finished blacktop on it along the entire south side of the property, sloping to the south, hitting against a curb. That curb then for the south side of the property runs towards the east, hits into a 90-degree corner, and then tries to run halfway down the property before it finds the first storm drain. Of course, it can't handle this. You could see it right after the rain where it took, and the weeds that were this tall mismanaged there are folded down from the amount of water that went thundering through there. And then their plan is they're going to take and pile in a bunch more structures in this there. So they're going to either have to redesign what they already built, follow the plans that they didn't follow already that they didn't do, to redirect this water where it's supposed to go, or they're going to find a way to take and dump this so they don't flood out a new structure to dump this on someone else. Because of course, if they contain their water that's already headed towards where they plan on putting a structure, they're going to flood out a structure that's underneath of a warranty period. They're going to push it to someone else. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any more comments from the public? Please come forward.
Rachel Flasky, Brookings. I am a homeowner just on the adjoining property. But I do thank you all for your time and listening to my concerns today. I would have liked to have brought my concerns to the zoning committee meeting. However, those meetings seemed to always happen over the 4th of July weekend, so we ended up missing it. So I have to air my concerns at this venue instead. So City Council, today I'm requesting that you vote against the rezoning of the business property from B2A to R2 for two reasons. These reasons include the flooding of existing neighbors and the inability to have the parking lot be dual zoned as both business and residential. First, City Council should vote against the rezoning because the flooding to the existing neighbors. I brought this flooding issue to a zoning committee meeting a couple of years ago. During that meeting, it was decided a water survey needed to be completed, and the survey does indicate dynamic water flow in this area to the southeast corner. So if you look at the pictures that are the renderings on this, the actual drainage holes are actually on the north side of the crown of this space. So the parking lot has a crown and the drainage is over here. All of the parking or all of the drainage here doesn't exist. So the water has nowhere to go except up and over the curb to the southeast, which then floods the south and the east area of the lots. So during my time with that city council, or at that meeting, it was my impression afterwards that this space remained green space in order to help mitigate that drainage or potential drainage issues in that area. So it's interesting to me that we are now calling this a parking lot, which I had never seen any renderings of a parking lot there. There is part of a parking lot, but beyond that, towards the east, it has always been green space. And my understanding was that was going to be utilized for a berm and water mitigation. So right now we are having continued water issues. In fact, it's more because we got hard space that is just allowing that water to run off even and come towards us even faster than it had been before. So today I ask City Council, please vote no to this rezone. Thank you.
More public comment? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Ava Flasky of 511 Cardinal Drive Circle, and today I'll be reading a letter from my neighbors regarding their concerns as they were not able to attend this meeting. My neighbors being Mark Poschel and Ellen Thompson of 514 Cardinal Drive Circle, regarding the rezoning of the east 151 feet of Block 1 in Northern Plains Addition, City of Brookings, Brookings County, South Dakota. City of Brookings City Council members, thank you for taking time to hear our concerns regarding the rezoning of the east 151 feet of Block 1 of the Northern Plains Addition, City of Brookings, South Dakota. We are sharing our concerns now as we did not receive notice soon enough to attend the July 2nd, 2024 Planning Commission hearing. 1. The proposed rezoning does not create harmony in the neighborhood given the proximity of the new development to the residents with property near or around the development, the type of housing being proposed, and the anticipated dimensions of the proposed housing development. The building of multifamily units in such close distance to single-family homes goes against the current atmosphere in the neighborhood and will likely decrease the value of existing single-family homes in the surrounding neighborhood. 2, the proposed rezoning has not taken adequate care to address potential water drainage and water flow runoff, and how this will impact surrounding properties like ours. Our property has already experienced water flow issues since the Northern Plains Development project started. We ask the Brookings City Council members to deny the request for rezoning the east 151 feet of Block 1 of the Northern Plains Addition, City of Brookings, South Dakota. This rezoning is unnecessary, not in alignment with the original plan, lacks harmony in the neighborhood, and negatively impacts the properties in contact with the project. Regards, Mark Poschel and Ellen Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other public comments?
Hello, Council, Mayor. My name is Jason Flasky. I reside at 511 Cardinal Drive Circle. I noticed that I have a 3-minute timer on here and nobody voting or wanting to have this go through had a timer on. And so I just need to reference Brookings Municipal Code 94.7, and that says that any interested person shall be given a full, fair, and complete opportunity to be heard at the City Council meeting when decisions regarding zoning changes are made. Is this a hearing?
Yes.
Will I be denied?
You will have
My
3
right.
minutes, sir.
Okay, so you're denying my right to a complete hearing. Very well. I'll get to the short of it. As considering the zone going on that little chunk of land that was meant to go with commercial, it was meant to mitigate the water flow. It was never meant as a parking lot. I have a banner engineering drawing from from March of 2022. May I present it to the dais?
Sure.
As you can see on that rendering, that little green space, that little space was never designed for a parking lot. There's a curb on there right now. That was meant for the green space to mitigate the water runoff. I also have the only published landscaping plan on the city website. Perhaps there's one somewhere else, but this is all there is. May I present this? As there has been no updated landscaping plan as required by Brookings Municipal Code on the current structures, you can't vote on this anyhow. At least it can have a building permit placed. But another big problem we have with this little chunk of land is that the east to west property line is only 123 feet to the curb. The city street and the parking lot is an extra 28 feet. If you rezone this from commercial to residential, you're going to be placing residential land on a commercial parking lot. You will never be able to get visual screening from that parking lot to whatever residential building gets put right behind that property to the west. That's a violation of the city ordinances. So that has much more than 8 or 10 parking spaces in that parking lot. You'll never be able to shield any residential property from that parking lot unless you put the visual shield in the parking lot, in which case you'll have to remove the parking lot. There is not enough dimension on there in order to build even hardly a house just west of that, just west of the parking lot, let alone a twin home or a townhome, which they're going to propose to put on there. And so basically you've got a situation where you have 123 feet by 72 feet and not 151 feet by 72 feet. And so it's either got to be commercial or it's all got to be residential. But right now, to go along with the flow of what it is currently zoned, which is B2A, you need to leave at least that portion of the parking lot as commercial space and not consider the entire 151 feet as residential. That needs to be left as commercial, at least that west 23 feet.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other public comments on this item?
I am Jeff Struy, Council, Mayor. I live at the corner of 20th and Rio Grande. I know Mrs. Watson, where she lives, and I know she has a problem with her driveway as far as sightseeing on Main Avenue. So that's one reason I think you should take into consideration of voting no on this proposal. The second contains the, I call it land genocide, is when you have runoff that drains from one area and it ruins somebody else's area. So you have a burden there, a burden of developing in one section that's given a burden onto another section. And I lived in the state of Washington 24 years where there was continual rain, continual mudslides, and it's always in the same place, year after year after year. So you're going to have a problem here with what's considered a 100-year rainfall in one spot for 1 year. You're going to have it the next year. It may not be 2 inches, it might be 5 inches, but you're going to have a problem. So when you start to develop in areas that's considered green space, you have an issue. And it's up to the council to determine that if you develop this into an R2 zoning, that the burden is actually going to be on you. So I just strongly suggest that you vote no on this. Thank you.
Any other public comment on this item?
Good evening. My name is Joe Thorne. I'm a resident in the cul-de-sac just to the north of my adjacent neighboring cul-de-sac here. And I'd like to speak on behalf of the neighbors and this whole proposed change. After listening to Charlie Richter here, obviously we have stormwater issues that we need to address. And I've been in the construction industry for several years. There's plenty of things to consider. And one thing that I know is that when we start to build, it's right to go with like the best design first, not have changes, change orders, and implement changes that are going to impact everybody around us. So I'm not in favor of this change, and I don't think it should be rezoned. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments tonight?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for this time. I am also my name is Vince Eberhardt. I reside on Remington, 521 Remington, and am a neighbor of these folks. 2 points I want to bring up. I concur with everything that's been said by all the previous speakers. I will tell you, I have a son who is 10 years old, and one of the issues I have is it's going to create additional traffic. That's going to go down 15th Street. It's also going to be on Main Street. Anyone that's ever taken a child to Dakota Prairie in the morning knows that any additional traffic going south on Main Street, adding more into that is not going to be helpful. Secondly, to get back to the son, it's an additional traffic issue. He was hit, he wasn't injured, everything was fine, it was a light, but it was, he was riding a bike, someone didn't happen to see what was going on, and he got clipped. There have been many other instances in this city where that's happened, and it's been a lot worse, though the results, serious injuries, even worse. So that's one point, the traffic issue. The second issue is, I'm a farmer, okay? I know a little bit about rain. In 2023, we were 25% drier than we had been in a 10-year average. So what that means is we had the water holding capacity in our soil to take some of this rain, and we got the 3-inch rain we got a week ago. Okay, we were 25% drier, folks, okay? This year, we are now I think the last look, 22% wetter up to this point. Now, we've still got almost half the year left, or 5 months, but the point of it is, if we have saturated soils, it's not going to take a 3-inch rain or a 100-year rain, it's going to take a 1-inch rain. And then you're going to have even additional runoff, because let's face it, we've seen that before with saturated soils in this city. So I would encourage the council to not approve this, and I would thank you for your time in considering this.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the public? Okay. Close the public hearing. Comments, questions from council? Councilmember Tiltonburn.
My first question, I think, was already addressed at the beginning of the comment period, and I think, Kyle, this is perhaps a question for you, but you had mentioned that with this rezone, it would not change the number of units, it would just sort of redesign the layout of them. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, we were originally approved for 20 units, I think, in November of 2022. We're still looking at doing 20 units. And this whole plan was approved in 2022. The R2 units were set up for apartments, and the B2A was set up for small business, just like we have it now. So we're not looking to have you guys approve a whole development plan. We're just kind of looking at that small parcel down there.
And also a follow-up question for you. You had mentioned that with this rezoning, you would still be doing the berm and swale to mitigate some of that water runoff, correct?
Yeah, so the, Banner Engineering did the original drainage plan, and it was approved by the city back when we submitted that for the original development, and that would still stand as it sits. But because we're hearing feedback from neighbors that there may still be an issue, even though we have that drainage plan that we rely on the engineers for, we'd like to just go above and beyond and add that additional kind of safeguard so we can stop anything that could be occurring in the future.
Thank you. I asked both of those questions because I think it's worth clarifying. It sounds like the two primary concerns that are coming from the residents in the surrounding area relate to the amount of traffic flow of vehicles and then the amount of flow of stormwater runoff. I think it's important to note that this rezoning for the small section in red would not change the amount of traffic flow, and it would not have much of an impact on the stormwater flow. In fact, it may actually improve it, given the fact that you'll be able to do the additional stormwater drainage efforts. And so I just want to clarify and reiterate that with the rezoning that is before us tonight, and please correct me if this is incorrect, but it seems like the two primary concerns that are brought forward would not be solved by either approving or denying this rezone request. And so I think perhaps it's just useful to have that point of clarification as we continue to have this dialogue about this property.
Councilmember Avery?
Well, Holly kind of covered what I was concerned about, is that I'm concerned that I really listened to what everybody said, and we saw the video of the rain event and everything. Is very concerning, and I think we're all agree that there's a water issue there. But I'm not convinced that voting no on a rezoning of a very small piece of this land will alleviate that problem. If it would, if somebody could tell me that that's going to be the answer to the problem, I'd say, well, then we should vote no. But I don't see that, because the property is already, the major part of the property is already zoned for the use that the developer has indicated. And we won't be stopping that. I mean, that's going to continue. And, generally you think of a down zoning, that's more likely to improve the situation, or where we actually spread out that development a little bit, let them have a chance to do some more flood control measures. It might be a better solution than just for us to come out and vote no on this and stop the project, or won't stop the project, but it will just affect that small piece of the property.
Any other comments, questions from council? Please call the roll.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tildenburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Dorn. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 11B, public hearing and action on ordinance 24-024, an ordinance to permit by conditional use permit townhouses on blocks 3A and 4 in Northern Plains Edition. City of Brookings, Brookings County, South Dakota. Mike Struck, Development Director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The item before you tonight is a conditional use for townhomes on this R2 zone property of part of the previous discussion. You can see it's the highlighted area there in yellow, and then it would extend to the red area based upon the previous action to rezone. Essentially, is with the conditional use, it was before you in 2022. It was approved for a project to do up to 20 townhouses in this basically same area. Conditional use permit expires after a certain time period if you don't initiate any work on the project, and the developer was not aware of that time frame. Their initial focus was on the medical building, came in to apply for a building permit, and it's like, sorry, your conditional use permit expired. You need to reapply. So he went through that process. It's a very similar project. He's looking to do 20 units. What they're trying to do is break them down so there'd be no more than 8 townhomes that would be tied with Block 3A, and no more than 12 townhomes that would be tied with Block 4. And that would be based upon one of the next actions when you'll see the revised preliminary plat to show how they want to break out that particular area. You know, it is consistent with the standards for a conditional use permit. It does come to you with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, and Development Review Team reviewed the request, and they do support the request. With that, I would stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Kyle Roush. Just real quick to reiterate what Mike said, you know, essentially to get utilities here, we got permitted for this in the fall of, I believe, 2022, late fall. There were no water mains, no sewer mains, so we had to come all the way up from the intersection on Main Avenue, run all the way down the road. By the time we got everything buttoned up and got the road and infrastructure in, that 1 year had expired for our conditional use. We're just asking to re-up that conditional use. We have services and everything in place already for what we originally approved for, and we're just asking for the same thing. So, thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward.
So kind of had a question before the original vote was done, but I don't know how these things work. Anyway, so question, is there any chance of delaying start of construction until that berm and swale is completed to see, I mean, obviously we can't wait years or whatever to see if we have another couple inches rain, but just to see if there is some improvement with that before all the additional structures are placed. And the other thing I thought of then too was, you know, we rezoned that additional spot to kind of spread things out, whereas this does not look like it's very spread out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, please?
Thank you. So Rachel Plasky, Brookings. First of all, I'd like to note this. Mr. Roush did not have that start when he was up here, and I'd like to know why we aren't getting the same consideration that he did. We noticed that the first time around too, so all of us have a timer set. Why is that different? So, but my second point being that the image up there, if you take a look at it, the piece that is the parking lot, and I didn't get around to this on my other one, appears to be business zoned. So my question is, how are you going to zone that business and residential for these building projects, for this new building project? Can somebody answer that?
I'm not sure exactly what you're asking about.
Right there's a parking lot. That parking lot in your photos or in your renderings is showing that as being utilized as part of that R2. It can't be both.
No, I think we're just looking to have that be R2.
Focus the mic, Kyle.
I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but we're just looking at making that square R2 that was in the previous agenda item, I guess.
Well, then you're going to have to start over, because that is not the same square as what was just voted on. That is different. Pull back up that other rendering that shows yes. If you notice, it comes straight off of there. That parking lot juts up to the west. So you can't have it both ways here. The rest of us don't get to have it both ways. So these guys shouldn't either. And this is my concern, that they're not going to be able to create privacy for this new resident or this new house here either. That is part of the laws, that they get privacy provided to them. How are they supposed to have that when everything to the west of them is either a driveway or a parking lot? Which is why I felt like that zoning shouldn't have happened in the first place. That zoning should have been green space as what was promised for mitigation of their parking lot and their drain off, the draining water from their building. So that is what I was trying to get at during that zoning part. But that is not doable. So I think that they need to take this rendering back and come up with something different. And I think you need to vote no to it tonight. Thank you.
Yes, Ron Stay again, 503. Deer Pass, if you can take a look at that first unit that's down at the south end, that wall is 8 feet from the property line. That wall is also 16 feet from my sunroom. And I don't think there's one of the owners, designers, or any of the council members that would want a unit, a rental property that close to a residential home. Now, at one of the earlier meetings, I think Ryan had mentioned that they could possibly get about 25 feet away from the property line. Well, if that would be the case, then that would allow them to put in the swale system, and about 2 or 3 evergreens would have to be sacrificed, but they could bring it right around the north side of those and right around the east side of that property then, and to the retention pond. But right now, if it's at 8 feet, they have to put a swale system in that 8 feet also. And that is going to be right up against my property line. And any overflow of that swale is going to go right to my foundation, because it's already done it twice this spring and summer, and right down along. And I've been pumping water, and I have not pumped water except when we had the 8-inch rain. And I've been pumping this year, basically from the design from up above on the developed. And I'm the one that is going to be impacted by that rezone. I definitely will be. So I appreciate your time, and I would suggest setting a setback of 25 feet on that first unit. And if they can shift to the north, have them do it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments on this item?
Jordan Arneson again, 1717 West 44th Street South. This is the first rendering I've seen of this. I was just a concerned citizen coming in to talk about this. After hearing and seeing some stuff come up here where Jason Flasky was presenting what the initial plan was on this thing, where this was going to be help for water retention from the business shed on that. Why are we not following that is one of my questions I'm asking. The second one, if we're rezoning this thing in tonight's vote to go residential, to let them space these things out more, how are they gonna have them tighter than what this is? They're encroaching on a property line that they're pushed so close that to have any drainage off of a new construction, they're gonna be shedding water right to the property line. That corner in the bottom corner that we're seeing there, that's the one that water went over the top of that curb by 5 to 6 inches already. They're either gonna shove it right up against, and they're gonna have to do major slope and major dirt work for these new units they're building, or it's gonna spill off of there and go right into his sunroom like was being discussed. And there is absolutely no room with this rendering for any space to do any water retention. This property is going to shape everything to shed its water to someplace else anytime there's rain more than an inch. The original plan was set up for this thing to be water retention, to help shape this, to help deal with that, to do the business shed for the business water, because you have so much hard space there that does not have proper drainage. I honestly think somebody needs to be checking and seeing what the slope work is, because I don't think they followed what the engineering drawing was in that thing. It is shedding water in the wrong direction, and they're pouring, that entire parking lot is pouring hard into a 90-degree corner. That's either gonna go up someone's driveway into a new construction townhome, or it's gonna spill around the backside, and there's no room to put anything in there. If you're voting to rezone this thing so they can space out more, it looks like or having you vote to rezone this thing so they can wedge in another unit to make more profit. That's my comment. I think that should be actively considered here. Thank you.
Council members, Alan Sandor again. Just to do my best to put the neighbors at ease, at no circumstance are we looking into adding any more units than what was previously approved. This rendering is a little old. We absolutely have heard all the feedback that we have received. The swale and the tree concerned that was technically planted on our property, we have gone above and beyond to try to maintain and keep. The approval of removal of a parking lot for more homes is indeed to allow us to space it out more, to allow more green space. But with the addition of the swale, of about a 10-foot swale, in addition to the spacing of the 8 feet that we want to do, this rendering is completely a little bit off, and we are supposed to be about 18 feet away from the property line. Okay, so I wanted to do my best to put you all at ease that the rendering is not as accurate as it should be. And our goal is to increase more green space, not to remove it. Thank you.
Any other public comment on this item?
Hi, my name is Ava Flasky, and I would like to present a petition from the neighbors. The Northern Plains Addition has lost its current conditional use status due to a lack of development on the property in a timely manner, and the placement of townhomes in the residential blocks contained in the property will violate the harmony of the adjoining neighborhood, cause a loss of privacy to the current residents, increase the velocity of runoff water to adjoining properties, increase local traffic exponentially to the local and adjoining properties, devalue the property values of the existing homes, and severely curtail the available evening sunlight to several adjoining properties. I, the undersigned, formally request the conditional use request by Northern Plains Professional Properties, LLC, be formally denied, and that the current R2 status is acceptable for use only to those single or double family homes prescribed in the current Brookings City zoning ordinances. May I bring this up to you?
Thank you. Any other public any other public comments, please?
Linda Watson, Main Avenue South. I'm just curious why you're voting on a plan that's not right. If that's not up to date, shouldn't they have brought you one that is up to date? You just said it wasn't. That's my question.
Hello, my name is Julia Eberhardt, and I am a Remington resident as well. And actually, that was literally what I was going to ask and say was the developer has said that the rendering is not accurate, that they intend for more green space and drainage, but that the rendering does not state it. And while I am sure we could trust him on his word, I would ask that in due diligence, the council would deny this request until an updated rendering is supplied.
Hi, Vince Eberhardt, Remington again. I would just echo everything that the people have mentioned on this. The one thing you guys basically told us in the previous motion that, hey, it's already zoned residential. We're just fixing this little square, right? You guys can fix that right now. They messed up on their conditional use permit. That's on them, whatever. You guys can stop that from being approved, and then they have to go back to the drawing board or do whatever. There can be more conversation based on that, and sucks that you guys missed that date, but hey. So I encourage the council to vote no on this issue so that it can at least put the brakes on and get a better plan in place. Thank you.
My name is Jason Flasky, 501 Cardinal Drive Circle, and I'm actually here today to help you guys out, believe it or not. That rendering up there are so many problems, so many violations of the city code, the street code, the subdivision code in there. I have no time to list them tonight, but I certainly would be willing to do it at a different time if it has to go that far. That rendering as drawn cannot possibly be legal in any way, shape, or form. The plat that they're using includes the street for their square foot area for buildable use area in each one of those properties. That is not legal. You can call a private drive if you want, but if you do, then you're having a trouble with the street standards, section 5164, stating that private streets or roads shall be indicated on the plat as a private roadway easement and shall not be included as any part of a required lot area or setback. There's no chance that those properties can meet minimum yard requirements, especially when you look at section 94-393, unit group of buildings. If you want to call it that, that's fine. It says where a lot or tract is to be occupied by two or more buildings of similar use, character, or architecture. Each principal building shall have the minimum lot area as required for a single building on a single lot. Up there in Block 3A, you got 40,000 square feet up there. When you take the 20,000 street of the road out of it as required by the law, you got 20,000 feet. Each unit needs 16,000. No way you can get two in that block. When you look down at the southern one down there, you only got 123 feet to the road, 73 feet wide. That building will have to shift up at least 30 to 50 feet in order to get the minimal square foot area. Can't be done. We can make an argument that that's actually a public street right there because it has city utilities underneath it. And in the public right-of-way section, in section 94.1, any road, sidewalk, alley, or other area reserved for present or future use by the public, which will be going through there in their dental office, as a matter of right, for the purpose of vehicular, pedestrian travel, or utility installation. That is a public street, which means it now needs to comply with the street code, or the sidewalk code of the street, which states that all new construction shall have a sidewalk placed on it at the time of construction. You have to put a sidewalk in there if that's a public street. And if that's the case, they have even less square foot to build on that footprint right there. So that's something I'm willing to challenge in court if I have to. But you cannot let anything like that actually go through right now. If you took off that southernmost one, you could leave the next three up there, but you'd have to take one off of the north end as that's plotted right now. You can't vote on this. The townhomes are too much on this square foot property, and I'm willing to challenge that.
Any other public comment on this item? Closed public hearing. Is there comments, questions by council? Councilmember Avery.
Well, there's been some good points brought up, and I'm thinking that maybe we do want to revisit the drawing that we have to look at with one that conforms and make sure we're conforming with all the different regulations and that. And so we have a fair hearing for everyone. I mean, it's just, I'm I'm not comfortable voting yes on it right now until we resolve some of those things. I don't know that we need to deny it, but I think what we would consider, I would consider doing is tabling the issue until we get the satisfactory information. So I guess at this time, I would make a motion to table until a time that we get another rendering of the project.
Second. I would just like clarification. Is the satisfaction information you're asking for is just the updated rendering?
An updated rendering, and then have it reviewed to make sure that it complies with regulations.
And there's been a second? All right. We need to have a second. Do we have discussion on the table? Motion? Help us out a little bit.
If it's not a procedural question, then we would need a second.
He seconded it.
Okay, then the question would be.
All right. Councilmember Specker?
Yeah, according to the city, the revised plat met all the zoning and subdivision regulations. Is that particular plat map this one?
So in the R2 district, there's specific lot area setbacks, frontage requirements that are allowed. So with a townhouse, up to 4 units, I believe the minimum lot area is like 3,600 square feet per unit, give or take a couple of square footage. And for the lot itself is like 14,000 square feet. So they're proposing a couple different blocks in this area, and then you could break them down into different lots. But what Mr. Flasky referenced was not appropriate to this particular project, because this project is specifically, when you look at the R2 zoning district, townhouse up to 4 units, it has specific lot area and density requirements. What he referenced is really what we look at with commercial and industrial projects, where you have a large parcel and the company puts multiple buildings. That's not associated with any particular zoning district. So yes, what was submitted was accurate. Now, the next agenda item is actually the revised preliminary plat. It hasn't been final platted yet, because you cannot proceed to final platting until you get your preliminary plat approved. So, excuse me. It is private streets out in this particular area. So, Mr. Flasky's correct. You can't count the street area as part of the lot. Our setbacks go from the edge of the street right away, though. That's where we begin our setbacks.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Tilton Burn.
Mike, could you address the concern about the screening between a residential and a parking lot, and how that would be addressed in the updated plat?
Yeah, that's something that the developer is going to have to figure out a way to address that screening. That's not something that, we're going to propose. We just have to enforce the regulations that are on part of our code, and so they'll have to figure out a way on how they want to handle that screening.
So regardless of how it's zoned, that screening will still stand, that will still need to be established in some way and meet code.
I mean, we'll take a hard look at it. I mean, the commercial use was in prior to the residential use. The residential use is coming after the fact. We'll have to look at it and discuss it to figure out, exactly how it's going to be applied. But in other areas where if there's a commercial use that it comes in first and then the residential use comes after the fact, we don't penalize the commercial use and tell them that now you have to install certain screening mechanisms because somebody built a residential unit next to you. You were kind of there first. Typically the zoning would be in place, and that you should have some awareness that that could happen, and you'd want to account for that, but it's not always the case.
So really the burden of the screening would be placed on the residential lot in this example, if they wanted that to exist there?
It could be. There could be other procedures that they could go down to address the screening in a different manner if they chose.
And maybe a good follow-up would be for Kyle to ask, are there plans for any screening between those properties at this point?
We just haven't gotten probably to that point.
Kyle, can you come to
Bring
the
him up
mic?
to the mic.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to that point yet. You know, we need to talk to the city about regarding whether that's an access drive or part of the parking lot there, and kind of how we're gonna figure all that out. But I would assume that would kind of happen during the building permitting process with the residential buildings there. So, yeah.
Councilmember Duran.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is for Mike. Since some concerns have been brought up about traffic, can you overview how that was considered in a development like this? Did it constitute a traffic study, or how does that be overviewed when we look at development such as this?
No traffic study was required for this. You know, I think when we were looking at this particular location, 2 access points were kind of recommended to make sure that we had, you know, the ability to move traffic in and out of there. Also, the proximity along Main Avenue and the location of the hill, we looked at appropriate sight lines, but typically that's not a function of community development to deal with traffic. That's a public works engineering type issue, so.
And John is here if he has any other information to add on traffic.
John Thompson, Public Works. Mike made the appropriate comments on this. For the number of trips that they have for this development, we would not require a traffic impact study. We do look at sight lines. We look at how the traffic is going to flow from there, but it did not meet the bottom structure for a traffic impact study.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Councilmember Tilton Burn.
Just as a point of clarification, right now there is a motion to table this item for the purpose of bringing forward an updated plat, but I believe what I heard is that updated plat is actually on the next item. Is that correct?
Well, that's preliminary plan. I think what Councilmember Avery was probably referring to is an updated site plan. So the site plan is a requirement of the conditional use permit process, and so if that's your intentions, the updated site plan, it's my understanding there is one submitted to staff this afternoon that did show movement of everything to the north with, I think, a drainage easement or the berm location shown on the south and then wrapping around to the east, but that wasn't submitted in time to get to your packets.
Okay, so, all right, Steve, our next direction is we have to vote on the table of the motion.
Right, until the site plan has been evaluated by community development and submitted to the council.
All right. Call the roll on the motion to table.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Okay. That item has been tabled, and then so, what do we do here now? Steve, we have item 12A that may not be able to be looked at then this evening?
That can go forward. That has
Okay.
no impact on the conditional use. That would, you know, the zoning's in place, so.
All right.
preliminary plat, yeah.
Item 12A, action on revised preliminary plat for blocks 1A, 3A, and 4, Northern Plains Edition. Michael, present this item.
Yeah, so this is kind of the final, excuse me, component of the process. with the zoning being in place, really the preliminary plat has been adjusted or revised to align a little bit with the rezoning, but also to break it down into a couple of blocks so that they can, So there's a comparison of the two previous, the preliminary plat on the right was approved in 2022. The one on the left is what they're proposing now. Essentially, it's broken into two blocks, and as we mentioned in the conditional use process, the one block was looking at being proposed for 8 townhouses, the other block for 12 townhouses. And so that's where they show the lot areas, they show the private access, and then up in the upper right-hand corner of the 2024 revised is kind of your drainage area. So it does meet our requirements for preliminary planning purposes. It does come to you with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission for approval, and the Development Review Team supports the approval of the revised preliminary plat. And with that, we'd stand for any questions you may have.
Thanks, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item?
I'm Kyle Roush with Dakota Land Design. Yeah, just like Mike said, there's an owner group with this project, and it's part of the owners of the medical building, and they're just looking to split that up into 2 different smaller groups of owners is the point of this. So otherwise there's no major changes, and then it incorporates the rezone that you guys approved previously tonight.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Close public hearing. Comments from council? Questions? Please call the roll.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
Okay. Item 12B, action on resolution 24-072, a resolution approving revised policies of the City of Brookings. Paul Racino, our city manager, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. City staff presents an updated council policies before City Council tonight. The review of the proposed policies occurred over the last 4 years. The most recent group of updated policies did occur in April 2023. Those reviewing the policies and making recommendations tonight to City Council include Council members Tilton Burn and Avery, as well as staff members who participated in the review, which included the City Attorney, City Clerk, Deputy City Manager, and Assistant to the City Manager. Previous councils constructed many of these policies over the last 20 years. The review group ensured policies were relevant and reflected the current City Council, organization, and community. The policies recommended for approval tonight include 22 reformatted policies and 1 new policy. The governance and ends policy outlines council's role, the vision, mission, and values, and boards, and response to boards. The ends policy outlines expectations of city organization, including finances, services, business model, economic development partnerships, and strategic planning. The policies that received the most significant changes for tonight's discussion include Policy 306, which is tax increment financing. This policy was revamped to use best practices and advice from the city's consultant. It also includes opportunities to address community need, an addition of triple bottom line requirement for the impact of equity, environment, and economy, a requirement that developer equity, increased fee and performance requirements, and more. Policy 309 is the sales tax incentive grant. This policy was adjusted to require that requests align with the goals of the Economic Development Master Plan, eliminate outdated language, detailed desired markets, and thresholds to attainment of incentives, the requirement of a return on investment, and then, of course, added triple bottom line language. Policy 321 is the triple bottom line. This is a new policy requiring incentive requests contain an analysis of the impact on residents, the environment, and the economy. A rubric will assist with scoring and determining if TIF, sales tax, other incentives are appropriate. I did review these economic development policies, which are somewhat significant with the Economic Development Director. He really didn't have any concerns for City Council on these policies. City staff does recommend approval as presented.
Thank you, Paul. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Council, have any questions, comments? Councilmember Tilton-Burn.
I would just like to thank my fellow Councilmember Wayne Avery here for his work on this alongside me, and then, of course, the city staff that supported this. As Paul mentioned, it was a 4-year process to completely go through line by line everything in our policies, and so to be able to bring those into a space where they are concurrent with one another and also kind of brings it up to a more current space is exciting to be able to see. Everything is now in better alignment and really clearly outlines some of the policies that we have wanted to see in place. So it's exciting to be at this point. That's been a 4-year process and finally get these done.
All right. I would also like to thank our council members that were involved in this and the staff that put the time into this to update our policies. Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just make a couple brief comments, certainly sharing appreciation for the council members that worked to bring these policies forward. In particular, I think these are valuable because they include language that really helps to set criteria around how we evaluate incentives. And as we continue to consider development, and in particular economic development in the community, I think at times we found ourselves wanting strengthened language around how we evaluate moving forward with incentives. And so it's really helpful to put this language in place. It certainly needed to be renewed in some areas. So thanks so much for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Okay, please call the roll.
Avery,
Aye.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Rasmussen,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton-Burn,
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Okay, that pretty much tops it for tonight. We do have an executive session, but I'd like to discuss our agenda for the next meeting, which is the 27th. We obviously have some second readings on first readings that we had this evening. We have a rezoning that might be pushed back again. We do have possibly a new rezoning that would be first reading then now. Potentially. Budget amendment number 8 and the load coverage and the storm drainage, those will all be looked at again. We may have a report from our SDSU student next meeting. And then there will be some discussion on the arrival of the Emerald Ash Borer by our public parks, or Park and Rec Director, Kristen Zimmerman. Is there any other topics or comments that the council would like to bring forward at this time?
I have one.
Okay.
A couple meetings ago, the City Council gave me specific direction for September 27th for the IM28 discussion. In that direction, City Council asked me to ensure the League of Municipalities, the Retail Association, and Legislature, as well as the city, gives a report at that meeting. There was no recommendation on assuring that anyone that supports that IM28 is at that meeting as well. Is that the direction of council that you would desire me to do so? If so, I just ask for a simple motion so that I have that direction from council.
Entertain a motion?
I would make a motion that there be a proponent voice in the IM28 conversation at that study session, if available.
Is there a second? I'll second it.
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion on that?
I would maybe just note that I think the intent behind the study session was to make sure that voters in the community were as well aware of the issues around IM28 as possible. We certainly aren't trying to create an environment where there's only a no vote voice, but that it's a well-rounded conversation. So I think that's really the intention in making sure there's a proponent voice present that night as well.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton-Burn,
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
So, any other items? Okay, we will be going to executive session. There will be no business afterwards. We will adjourn immediately after the executive session is done. executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2.3 for the purpose of consulting with legal counsel or reviewing communications from legal counsel about proposed or pending litigation or contractual matters. I entertain a motion to enter in executive session.
So moved.
Please say aye.
Second. Aye.
If you're in favor. We are in executive session. Like I said, there will be no business afterwards.